after this recent or ongoing Iran-Israel-US war, which began on 28th February, which is ongoing. Professor Abdullah Baabood is a well-known academic from Oman, who currently is holding the chair of the state of Qatar for Islamic Area Studies and a visiting professor at the Faculty of International Research and Education, Waseda University, Tokyo, Japan. Professor Abdullah has taught at different universities and institutions in Europe and almost all GCC states, and was a visiting professor at National University Singapore and director of the Gulf Studies Center at the Qatar University, and also director of the Gulf Research Center at the University of Cambridge. Professor Abdullah Baabood has been associated also with the Gulf Research Center when it was based in Dubai during the annual conferences and elsewhere. We used to regularly interact, and I found Professor Abdullah one of the foremost Arab scholars, not only from Oman, but from the entire region, who has a unique perspective which very few Arab scholars have, and that is his inside view from the GCC, from historical, political, social, cultural, and the dynamics which an outsider, even though he may be a specialist for long years, doesn't really capture. And not only he has a unique Arab perspective, but he mixes with the Asian perspective. I mean, we have Western scholars articulating on this region, hundreds and thousands of them. But Professor Abdullah combines the Arab, Islamic, Asian culture and the perspective. And in that respect, his lecture today on the ongoing crisis in the Gulf region is extremely important. Professor Abdullah, if I can take your permission, I'll take few minutes to just give an outline. Viewers, I'm sure you will enjoy thoroughly Professor Abdullah's lecture. If we can go little back to the Islamic Revolution in 1979, and the continuous attempts by the external powers, especially US and Israel, to overthrow or regime change work in Iran. And what Iran has done is to take the policy of offense as the best policy of defense. So not only it developed after the Iran-Iraq war its defense capabilities, including nuclear capability, peaceful although, but the missile technology and other measures which they have taken have also been shared with their supporters like Hezbollah, Houthis, the Popular Mobilization Force, earlier the Syrians, and others. So in that way, they have taken on US-Israeli threats to the regime or to the Islamic government forward. With the result, now we have multi-pronged multiple wars. The Gulf states, GCC, who formed it in 1981, initially encouraged Saddam Hussein against Iran. But since then, there's been rapprochement on and off between the GCC and Iran. Iran recently, as I said, was attacked, and it is defending itself, to be honest. And the US and others underestimated or did not take Iran seriously With the result, now we are not only faced with a crisis in the Gulf, all the GCC states plus Iraq, but also an oil crisis, a gas crisis, and an economic crisis globally. And initially, it was thought it was for 4 years, but now it is dragging on for more than 11 days. So it will be interesting to see how the war attack and response has unfolded the course and what shape it will take, and what is the future of Gulf architecture. Because I believe way back in 1975, which I wrote in an article in Strategic Analysis, Oman's foreign minister had proposed a Gulf security architecture involving Iran, Iraq, and the present GCC states. Oman was the first country to take this initiative and to keep outside powers off from this region, because it believed that security belongs to them and they should take care of themselves. And its mediation efforts to bring about nuclear talks between US and Iran have been its consistent policy. But today's news really hurt me very much to hear that Salalah oil depots are on fire. I don't know exactly who has attacked them, but it's a beautiful city. I've been there many times. It looks like Kerala. But Oman is not going to give up its mediation efforts, its peace efforts, and its policy to bring the GCC countries, other GCC countries, and Iran together. Over to you, Professor Abdullah. You have about 45 minutes.
Thank you so much, Professor Aftab Kamal Pasha. It's for this great and wonderful introduction, and you were so kind to say some nice things about me and my background. And I just want to say that I have also learned from you throughout the years, and from your writing, and from your insights, and your academic contribution. I also want to thank the International Dialogue and Diplomacy Foundation for their kind invitation, and Hamidullah for approaching me on behalf of you. So thank you all very much. I also want to thank all the participants in this webinar, and hope that I will also hear from you, from your questions and contribution as well. So we'll leave some time for the Q&A and for your intellectual dialogue, as it were. As Professor Aftab Kamal Pasha had just mentioned, Salalah has just been hit, and that's my hometown as well. So, and it's a very devastating attack, and we feel it so badly. Not only in Salalah but also in Muscat and Duqm and other places in the Gulf, across the Gulf states. This is totally unprecedented. The Gulf states, as you know, that it's experiencing a repercussion of a conflict they actively tried very hard to prevent. Currently, we are seeing that the Iranian missiles are striking cities, airport, energy infrastructure, despite assurances that the Gulf airs and bases facility will not be used against Tehran. I know that there are some people who are trying to doubt that this is an Iranian attack, and anything is possible. But for all intents and purposes, it looks like Iran had already threatened the Gulf states that if the war was to break out, that they will attack Iranian American bases and American facilities in the region and facilities that supply the American army and military and navy, sitware, and air force. So, from what we also understand that, from the president of Iran, who apologized about the attacks, that this confirms that these attacks were coming from Iran, and it's a response to Iran being illegally attacked by the United States and Israel. So if you are from the Gulf, imagine a situation from a Gulf perspective where you are now involved in a war where it is basically created and instigated by Israel and followed by the United States. And you had nothing to do with it. You didn't initiate it. You didn't want it to happen. And within hours, the whole region becomes part of this battlefield, and we became basically victims to this war. We're seeing that missiles are, crossing our skies. We're seeing that energy facilities, ports, even desalination plants that the region depends on, becoming potential target. This is almost unthinkable. Suddenly the whole region has been, which was always described as the last pocket of relative stability in the Middle East. As we've had issues in the Middle East where we had countries that are going through conflicts, failed states, civil unrest, etc., economic failure. The Gulf states were considered as beacons of development and stability and security, and now it finds itself at the center of the most dangerous escalation in decades. Also, many of you would know that the Gulf states were undergoing some economic diversification strategies. They are planning their future economy based on their economic visions. Now they are under strain, if not challenge, adding another dimension to their security, which is, economic security. So it's not only military security and physical security, but also economic security. Meanwhile, we've seen that Israel, a country that has been attacking most of the Gulf states, attacking most of the countries in the region, whether it is in Gaza, Lebanon, Qatar, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Lebanon, and Iran, is instigating all of this. It was widely reported also that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu endorsed what is known as the Greater Israel Vision, which actually conceptually encompasses parts of the surrounding nations, including Saudi Arabia. This has drawn, of course, a lot of condemnation from Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states, which rejected this expansionist policies. And people in the region see this as part of the whole idea of Greater Israel that is being planned. So, the current conflict actually represents also a further downward spiral of events that exposes the limits of protection, either from the US, which has been the security partner, or from the Abraham Accords treaties that were supposed to bring the whole region to peace and security. So this moment we are facing a fundamental question: what does security mean for the Gulf when wars can actually reach it even when it tries to avoid them. And it tries to de-escalate, and it tries to find a dialogue and a solution to it. So I want to explore with you what this war tells us about the future of Gulf security architecture, as I have been asked by Professor Aftab Kamal Pasha and his colleagues. So the recent war, of course, involves Iran, Israel, and the United States. It actually may prove to be one of the most consequential strategic shocks to the region. It's a, it's a seismic event. It's basically a turning point for, as we said, for years, this region has been considered as a pocket of relative stability, and it's managed to avoid many conflicts in the region. That equilibrium that the Gulf states have actually managed to hold, and the stability that they managed to create, is now shaken, to say the least. It has also, this war has exposed a profound reality that that the Gulf states sit at the center of global energy and strategic geography, but also great power rivalry. Yet it does not control the conflicts that unfold around it, and it can hardly dictate what is going on. And this, of course, raises another critical question: what will the Gulf security architecture look like after this war? So my argument, if you like, is very simple. Though this war is a game changer, it's an inflection point, accelerating already structural transformation in Gulf security. And the region is moving away from dependence on external protection towards a much more complex hybrid system based on deterrence, strategic hedging, and selective diplomacy. To understand the future of how the Gulf security architecture is going to look like, let us just go back a little bit and understand the system that governs the Gulf security, at least for the past 4 or 5 decades. One important thing that Professor Aftab Kamal Pasha had mentioned was the Iranian Revolution in 1979. That has actually changed the perspective. Before that, of course, the Gulf region was, based on what is known as Pax Americana, which replaced Pax Britannica when Britain withdrew from the region. And the Americans created different security doctrines, starting, of course, from the twin pillar policy, which was, Nixon doctrine in the early 70s, basically relying on the security of the Gulf on Iran on one side during the Shah's time and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And then we've gone to the Carter Doctrine in the 1980s, and then, number of policies, rapid deployment, dual containment policy, where Clinton had tried to contain both Iran and Iraq, to another policy of offshore balancing and preemption doctrine. And recently, or in recent years, we've seen also the Obama coming up with a pivot to Asia and the rebalancing of the Gulf security. Then Trump came with what is known as the maximum pressure policy. So we've had a number of policies in the Gulf. And the Gulf states, despite all the challenges, and despite the fact that many people have written their obituaries that, that after the British withdrawal, they were going to dismantle, or they're becoming insecure, or the region will change. they have shown to be much more resilient than than people have expected. Um, Today, as you know, the Gulf states host one of the densest concentration of American military infrastructure in the world, which includes, of course, the U.S. Fifth Fleet in Bahrain, Air Force, Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, major installation in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, Prince Salman. We've also a Dhafra in Iraq, a Dhafra in the UAE, and of course there is Ain al-Assad in Iraq. And altogether, there are something like 50,000 plus US military personnel situated in the Middle East, with the majority of them actually based in the Gulf. This has been the architecture that was created, and many assumed it was going to be a reliable deterrence framework for the Gulf states. Now we are learning that security cannot be outsourced and cannot be relied on outside powers. So we need to look at how the Gulf states are going to do that. Unfortunately, we have a fragmented Gulf defense cooperation. As Professor Aftab Pasha had mentioned, that the Gulf Cooperation Council was actually created as a collective security mechanism. And the initial idea actually came from Oman, where it was based on security cooperation. And the idea was to involve both Iran and Iraq at that time. And there was even a talk about involving Yemen. But that didn't go through. And then another proposal came from Kuwait based on economic cooperation. That saw the light of what is known as the GCC. And the whole idea was, to start on economic integration, but also have a spillover effect to other sectors, including security. Unfortunately, security cooperation remained quite limited, fragmented, and still very nationally driven rather than a collective security. As we've seen that each Gulf state is pursuing its own security partnership, its procurement of its military weapons on its own without coordination with the Gulf states. Yet the Gulf states over the last decade have seen increasing economic interdependence. We've seen that they were relying on diplomacy to reduce regional tension. We've seen that there has been rapprochement and diplomatic engagement with Iran. As mentioned before, most all of them engaging on economic diversification for the post-oil era. And now they're trying to be part of what is known as this regional and global connectivity project, whether it is the Belt and Road Initiative, or it is IMEC, India, Middle East, Europe. In short, the Gulf states has rested on a combination of both external protection, limited regional cooperation, and some economic pragmatism. But the recent war has exposed the limits of this model, and we are seeing what is going on. And this Iran-Israel war revealed the structural vulnerabilities of Gulf security. The first lesson that can be learned, that the Gulf has become a strategic arena for conflicts between larger powers outside the will of the Gulf states. Even the Gulf states try to seek neutrality and try to host dialogue or host military bases or become part of this energy structure and logistical hub. This has not has helped, but it created a paradox. The Gulf is geographically central but strategically vulnerable. It can become part of a conflict without having to choose that it wants to be part of this conflict. And this is actually worrying, that others outside are deciding the fate of the region. Um, we've seen that this war has demonstrated the shift towards infrastructure warfare. We've seen, as mentioned, energy installations being hit, ports, desalination plants, they became potential targets in this war. So this war basically has enormous implication. And unlike most regions in the world, Gulf societies, as you know, rely heavily on desalination plants for water supply. And the world relies heavily on what the Gulf exports in terms of energy. So targeting these facilities, transform the military confrontation into potential economic and humanitarian crisis. Um, and represents a new form of vulnerability in the modern warfare. The war also has raised uncomfortable questions about the reliability of external security guarantees. As mentioned, the United States remains the most dominant military actor in the region because of its presence, not only globally, but also, as I mentioned earlier, in the region. The Gulf states have become increasingly recognizing that external protection cannot prevent escalation between major powers, nor can it eliminate the risks of associating with hosting foreign military infrastructure in terms of bases, military, whether it is Air Force or naval bases. In other words, security dependence now carries its own risk. And this is something that the Gulf states have now started to learn. From these developments, several strategies are emerging. One is that geography cannot be escaped. The Gulf sits between Iran and the global energy system. Its location ensures that it will remain central to geopolitical competition. Naturality and hedging alone cannot guarantee security. That is a lesson that is being learned now the hard way. Lesson two is that deterrence, the nature of deterrence is changing. Missiles, drones, and precision weapons have transformed modern warfare. These technologies allow states and even non-state actors to strike infrastructure across long distances. Traditional air superiority is no longer sufficient to guarantee security. That is also one of the lessons that we have learned. And another lesson is the Gulf states are recognizing that reliance on a single security guarantor is no longer sufficient. Trust has deteriorated completely. Let's remember the attacks on Aramco and the United Arab Emirates. And now, not once, but twice, attacks happen in the middle of active negotiations. First was in June last year, and now this episode that we are witnesses, where Oman was actually negotiating between Iran and the United States, and the feeling was that they have already, reached a milestone that could answer all the questions, and Iran was well, almost agreeing to all the demands, and yet this war has taken place. So, from that perspective, the Gulf states are pursuing strategies of strategic hedging. That is the only thing still open to them. This involves very, very complex partnerships with major players, world players like China, India, Europe, Russia, and other regional actors. Of course, this doesn't mean that they are going to neglect their relationship uh, with the US, but we've seen that there is a new Gulf security architecture that is emerging. And it's going to have different components. One is integrated air and missile defense, which has been on the agenda for a long time, but the Gulf states have not gone for it. So there is going to be, they already have, as we know, some very advanced missile systems like the Patriot and the THAAD and other defense technology, but they are not integrated. So the new strategy will include shared radar systems, integrated command structures and network, and coordinated interception capabilities. The meetings have taken place and not announced, but the Gulf states are already working on this to ensure that they are coordinating this. There is also a very serious talk happening about Gulf and maritime security. As you know, the Gulf remains at the heart of the global energy system. The Strait of Hormuz, and next to it, the Bab el-Mandeb is one of the most important maritime choke points in the world. So protection of this choke points are very important, and they require joint naval operation, enhanced surveillance, and multinational security cooperation. I believe the Gulf states are also going to increase their pursuit of strategic hedging and multi-vector diplomacy rather than relying exclusively on one power, in this case, the United States. They are diversifying their partnership. And this approach, of course, reflects a broader global trend towards multi-polarity. Now, we are also seeing, despite the tension, the Gulf states understand that Iran cannot be excluded any longer from any regional structure. Any long-term regional security framework has to include players in the region. Even after the conflict, some level of engagement will remain extremely necessary. This may include, of course, crisis communication channels, maritime confidence building measures, and regional dialogue mechanisms that actually some of it has already started even before this war. That includes all the countries in the region, including Iran, Iraq, and so on. So the future possible uh, security models would look like, yes, you have one model that is centered on defense network, on US centered defense network. The Gulf, as you all know, is anchored in a US led security architecture, and this cannot be escaped, but will need much more stronger regional integration. And another model is greater GCC or Gulf state strategies autonomy. So they need to develop stronger collective defense capabilities and indigenous military capacity, which some of them have already started to do so. And now they also need to, focus on regional security dialogue, which a framework that Professor Aftab Pasha had mentioned, that it should include Iran, Iraq, possibly Yemen, and possibly other countries in the region, and some names have already been suggested, and these countries, have a much larger interest in protecting and being involved in the region. So while it is politically difficult today to talk about, this regional security, history tells us that regional security systems often emerge after periods of conflict. Remember Europe and NATO, and so on. So I don't know how much I'm doing with time, but as I said, I'm going to try and learn from you and hear your questions and input. So I'll try and conclude by saying, first, that Iran-Israel war represent a major turning point in Gulf geopolitics. The Gulf state did not choose this war, but it must now reshape its security architecture because of it. It has to learn how to live with it. It has to learn how to avoid further escalation. The traditional security architecture that was based primarily on external protection, as I mentioned earlier, is no longer sufficient. The Gulf states need to diversify their security partnerships and deepen their security cooperation. The emerging Gulf security order will likely combine three elements: stronger regional defense cooperation, diversified international partnership, and very cautious regional diplomacy. So in short, the Gulf is entering a new strategic era, an era in which security will depend not on a single pillar, but on a layered architecture of deterrence on one hand, hedging on the other, and dialogue and collaboration with others. The Abraham Accords and the American reliability are now both under strain. Gulf leaders are now suspicious of their reliance on the United States and suspicious of the pressure that was put on, by the United States on the Gulf states to enter into the Abraham Accord. So we are witnessing now, questions being raised in the Gulf states, amongst the Gulf people, that how have these Abraham Accords helped peace, and how has the U.S. Security guarantor and U.S. support for Israel and U.S. attack on Iran has helped peace, when everything has been spent on protecting Israel from the attacks, but not protecting the Gulf states when the war is caused by them. These are fundamental questions that are being raised not only at the public and the intellectual level, but also at the senior government level. What will come next is not clear, but what is clear is that the Gulf will not be the same after this war, and the lessons will have been learned, and security, regional integration will have to work hard, and security arrangement and security collaboration have to take precedence now. And we cannot exclude anyone in this security arrangement. And, we can talk about a multi-layered security arrangement that can include all interested countries and parties that want to continue this relationship with the Gulf states and want to see the Gulf states staying prosperous, secure, and stable. With this, I would like to, if you allow me, to stop here and pass it on to you, Professor Aftab Pasha. Kamal Pasha, if you want to say any other thing or hear anything from the participants. I
Yeah,
don't know
thank
how
you.
much time we got left, but thank you.
Yeah, we have some time. Thank you, Professor Abdullah Baabood, for a very, I should say, thought-provoking presentation, which not only covered the history of the Gulf security and the several aspects of the regional actors, both Arab and non-Arab, and the geo-economic, geopolitics, geostrategic importance, which is growing by the day. No one can ignore the Bab al-Mandab or Strait of Hormuz, Suez Canal, so on and so forth. Nobody can change. But the enduring fact has been that like the Magan civilization of Oman, like the Arubis who defeated the Portuguese by 1650 and who chased the Portuguese out of not only Oman, but Yemen, Gulf, Hormuz, East Africa, and confined themselves to Goa. And of course, later on, the little difference between the Imam and the Sultan, but it remained a major maritime power, and the Al Busaidis took over later on. But Iran has shown throughout history, I must say, that it has been a major player in the Gulf. I don't want to underestimate its historical role, but I've studied maritime history and seen the kind of ships which Oman built, which were admired and feared by the Portuguese, Spanish, French, and others. And that's how they learned, not only from the invaders, but also from countries like India, where most of the ships were built, and Indians who played a vital role. And even when outsiders attacked this region, Oman has been at the forefront to defend its integrity, its unity, and the people and its culture and civilization. I'll give my concluding remarks after the Q&A, but now I would request Hamad to tell us the questions and ask them to be brief if they can speak. Otherwise, they can send in writing. Hamad,
Yes, sir.
please.
We have different questions. I think I will hand over to Dr. Umair Anas. He wants to ask some.
Well, I was told
Thank you.
Dr. Umair is busy with iftar. Hamad told me that you won't be able to join.
No, sir. I had an appointment for visa here in Ankara, so I just came out from the
Okay. Nice
visa
to
application.
see you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, Professor Abdullah, for your very insightful, enriching talk. You have rightly mentioned 2-3 aspects which I would like you to explain more. Yes, we agree on the point that the region lacks structural support for regional security architecture, and that's why they have been relying on outsider forces and on they have kind of outsourced their security. Now, you have briefly spoken that they would like to have kind of deterrence. So first of all, what exactly do you mean? What kind of deterrence the Gulf region might be planning to acquire? Do you think that the Pakistan-Saudi Arabia alliance is the part of that deterrence, if it is meant for that? And also, when you say that it cannot be outsourced, it means that you are going to build your own security, which means that there will be more traditional securitization of the region, which means that huge investment on local defense industry, military, and the entire the way we imagine about traditional security theory. So it will be a major shift. And you have rightly pointed out that the region will not be as it was before this war. So it means that we are going to see a very different region after this war. So I would like to understand, do you exactly mean that traditional securitization is going to take place in the region, and specifically the acquire they will try to acquire sort of deterrence, which we clearly mean nuclear deterrence? Yes, thank you very much.
Do you want to take few questions, or do you want me to answer directly?
Can we take 2-3 questions together?
Yeah,
Okay.
3 questions. I think one is already asked. Another 2 questions, I think.
Okay, we
will
have
make it
Mansoor
better.
Al-Maswari,
Yes.
and he has raised his hand. I would
Yes,
request you to please ask a question.
I need also to ask some question, please.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Thank you so
Mansoor
much. Thank
Al-Maswari.
you, Dr. Abdullah. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I really appreciate Dr. Abdullah's speech about the security in the GCC. I have 2 questions which may be relevant to the talk. One is when we look into the gains and losses of the GCC states from relying heavily on the United States security protection. I mean, while often being in conflict or tension with regional neighbors like Yemen, Iran, Sudan, Libya, and Iraq, and GCC has become a source of igniting conflict in these countries or funding the conflict. Could regional reconciliation create stronger cooperation with these countries and provide more sustainable form of security than relying on the US? I mean, can regional cooperation be less costly and more stable in the long term than depending on external powers? That sometimes, I mean, like US treating the Gulf states like strategic assets, cash machines, and energy sources. A second question is that to what extent does the GCC itself still function as an
We seem to have lost him.
Yes.
I mean,
He's back.
because regional security has become more dependent on I'm
Okay.
sorry for this. There's internet disconnectivity. Yeah. I mean, the second question is that to what extent does the GCC itself still works as an umbrella for security of the GCC states, more than functioning as a security for the Western interests, particularly the USA and the Israeli expansion interest in the region? I mean, the depending on the external actors like the USA military presence is the greatest threat to the GCC states today. And what has been happening nowadays in the GCC with Iran is the cost of the 40 years miscalculations of the GCC states.
Thank you.
Yes, may I come in, please?
Yes, like we can take one more question, but be very brief and to the point.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
yes,
think
yes,
instead of
yes.
narrating, just pointed, sharp questions.
Yes. First of all, I just extend my heartfelt appreciation for this enlightened lecture, and also giving the question to Iran as a regional security player. My question is one: is it possible to rejuvenate the existing GCC while including Iran in the fold? And the second one, what could be the security paradigm of Arab world vis-a-vis Arab versus Israel, particularly concerning Abraham Accord, and Arab versus US, at a time when many Arab leaders are voicing their concern that US is not protecting them as promised earlier? These are 2 questions.
What was the first question again? Could you repeat that? Sorry.
Yeah, Dr. Umair Anas talked about the deterrence theory and how reliance on the external powers has not helped, and whether eventually it will be based on nuclear issue.
It was possible to include Iran under GCC, which has been existing for years, to revitalize it again. always coming with new initiative or new security strategies. Instead, we should come forward, including Iran in the fold of GCC. Beyond just considering sectarial or maslaki differences or discord.
Okay.
Shall I start responding?
Yes, I think so.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for the very interesting inputs and questions. I would like to kind of, rather than answer each one at a time, is include them all because they are all interrelated in one way or the other. Well, let's begin with and say that, yes, of course, there is a shift in deterrence theory. There is a shift in the way that countries are now going to construct their defense because of the new technologies that are started to, to be used for military. We've now seeing that there is more focus on missile technology. We're seeing more focus on drones. We've seen even focus on militias and proxies, etc. So the whole idea of the war has changed because of technology and AI and so on. And the Gulf states are not really far away from that. We've seen some of the Gulf states already making some of their defense industry indigenous, and they're collaborating with other international countries in doing so, including India, but also including South Korea, United States, and other European countries. So there is a shift, and I think they will start to rely more and more on their indigenous capacity and capability, because that's the first line of defense. Yet, the technology and the new technology tells us that you don't need so much in terms of personnel, fighting, etc. All you need is this how to use this new technology. So I think they are going that way. But at the same time, as I said, they are diversifying their security arrangements while they're building their deterrence and their domestic capacity. They're also diversifying their relationship. Instead of relying on the United States as the sole security guarantor, we've seen that there are a lot of collaboration now with China, even in military, and India, and Pakistan, as the Pakistan-Saudi agreement. India is also quite involved in a number of security projects and collaboration. Not to mention, the list is with Oman. A lot of collaboration takes place as well, especially in terms of securing maritime security in the Indian Ocean and the Arabian Sea, and so on. So there is a shift, and this shift is already happening even before the war has broken. But the war is going to accelerate, and it will point out that that the Gulf states were lacking behind, despite some improvement here and there. But they still need to do a lot more, and this is going to accelerate that shift. Regional cooperation within the GCC has proved to be very difficult. As you know, the GCC itself initially came out of the need for security. during the Iran-Iraq war, the whole idea of the GCC came. If the war didn't take place, if the Iran-Iraq war wasn't going on at that time, it was going to be very difficult to for the Gulf states to have their own organization without Iraq at least being part of it. But because Iraq was involved in the war, it was a great opportunity for them, for these monarchies, to enter into this collaboration. But even if you look at the Gulf Cooperation Charter, which was written in 1982 and written very quickly because they only had very limited time to actually bring this new entity into being. The charter was written very quickly, as I said, and it doesn't take care of everything, and it hasn't been reviewed. So the Gulf states need to review this. I know that they want to keep their monarchical club together, which is fine if they wanted to do that, but they can learn from other regional groupings where they can have different levels of integration. They don't have to be part of the core, but they can be part of the circle, as it were. ASEAN is a good example, where you have ASEAN and ASEAN Plus. Even Europe has different levels of integrating regional countries into the European Union, and also they have their own, of course, NATO cooperation. The Gulf states can come up with another, idea of creating at least a GCC plus, where they can include Yemen, they can include Iran, Iraq. People are even talking about Turkey and India and Pakistan into this. And as we know that the Gulf states are also joining, some of them are started to join BRICS and Shanghai Agreement. Therefore, there is chance for them to break out of the model that they have and create different geometric levels of collaboration with different powers, and not necessarily getting out of the Western interest, because we can still see that there is always going to be Western interest in the region, and the US is still the dominant power, but that doesn't stop them from diversifying their not only their economies but their security, collaboration and cooperation, and technology. I know they're going to get a lot of pressure from the US if they diversify it with, say, with China, and they already started to get that. So at least work with the countries that are close to the US interest. India, for example, is one, and India has a lot to offer to the Gulf security, and India is also quite dependent on the Gulf region. And has not only in terms of manpower, but also in terms of energy and trade and so on. So there is a lot that actually, there is a space for India to enter into that. South Korea, Japan, as well can have a role in this. And we've seen that South Korea is already collaborating in a number of projects with Gulf states, so it's India and Pakistan. So there is this opportunity to involve everyone. I think it's inclusion rather than exclusion is the modus operandi. They cannot continue as an exclusive club. They can be GCC at the heart, but they can have different circles and can include other neighboring countries, and the GCC could expand to ensure that countries next to them, especially Yemen, that has suffered a lot and needs to be developed, needs to be put into the top priorities of the Gulf states to include it into some kind of a not only security collaboration but also economic cooperation, because you can't have a neighboring country like Yemen that is, going through difficulties and war and devastation, and you expect to have security in your border. So, Yemen borders two countries, as you know, Saudi Arabia and Oman, but also has shown that it can also attack other countries if and when they feel that they are threatened as well in Yemen. So you need to bring in Yemen. I think Iraq as well and Iran definitely are supposed to be in the middle, the second layer at least of the circle. The Arab-Israeli issue is a major issue. I think what we have seen since the 80s, the Arabs have come to a conclusion that they don't think war is an answer to the Israeli-Arab issue and to the Palestinian question, and they have recognized Israel, and they not only accepted Israel but also they got all the Islamic countries to accept Israel as long as Israel accepts a two-state solution and as long as Israel gives the right to the Palestinian and stop its occupation and apartheid state. If Israel wanted to live in peace and security, and if Israel wanted to cooperate with its neighbors, this is a greater opportunity that not only, country by country basis, but you will get all the countries have already agreed it. Since the 80s, as known, the King Fahd plan and Saudi Arabia had put this on the agenda. The problem with Israel, my friends, is that it doesn't want to have a one-state solution and includes the Palestinians. It doesn't want to have a two-state solution and give the Palestinians their own state. It wants to continue as an apartheid state. And now, with the recent announcement, and I know it's always been in the agenda, but with the recent announcement, it wants to create what is known as a greater Israel, based on biblical stories and trying to occupy countries and land from countries, including Saudi Arabia, including Jordan, including Egypt, and so on. So Israel is not really helping itself, and it doesn't want to get to be part of an security or cooperation arrangement. I won't be, saying something too secretive if I tell you that for some time I have been engaged myself in track 2 diplomacy that includes people from Iran, from Turkey, from India, from Pakistan, and from Israel, as well as the Gulf states, and unfortunately, we came to a point where there was almost an agreement from everyone to create something that is, a regional mechanism that includes all these countries, including Israel. But everybody agreed to it, but insisted that Israel has to come clear and clean on this by saying what it wants to do as far as its occupation and its relationship with the Palestinians. Will it accept a two-state solution? Will it accept a one-state solution? Just tell us what you want, because the way that you are doing it is not acceptable. So the Israeli negotiators who were with us, they went back to Israel, and then they came back and said, we have got instructions not to continue these discussions. Basically, They don't want to be part of the region unless they keep their policies of occupation and apartheid and domination of the region. And this is not going to be acceptable, and this is going to lead to further, if you like, defragmentation of the region. No one is against Israel being part of the region if Israel wanted to be part of it, but not through the Abraham Accord, because that has proved to be something that is not workable. I hope that I've answered some of these of the questions, and I apologize if I missed any.
So can we take 2-3 more questions like we have?
Yeah, I think Hamad, make it 2 because I have to leave by 5 for an interview. I'll have 5 minutes or so at the end to make concluding remarks. Just 2 questions and very brief.
Okay. Like a question has been asked by Rehana Shireen. She is a PhD scholar at Jamia Millia Islamia. She writes, the speaker mentioned the idea of a regional comprehensive security initiative. However, considering the deep historical insecurities and structural differences among the countries in the region, how feasible is such a framework in practice? In particular, without addressing the question of Israel and the long-standing Palestinian issue, which continues to shape regional politics and perception of security, do you think a meaningful regional security dialogue is actually possible? And like there are different questions. Like one question is why GCC continue to rely on the US for security while the US security is itself jeopardized by Zionists? Like
that has been taken care of.
Yeah.
I think both questions, unless you have anything else, have been answered in a way or the other. But let me tell you, the problem with the Gulf states, and I say it with trepidation, that they themselves do not trust each other. And this is a major issue. And this is something that they need to overcome, because throughout history, they have border problems, dynastic competition, and we have seen even recently the problem between Saudi Arabia, Emirates, and Bahrain against Qatar, and now before the war there was Saudi Emirati conflict. So I think this is something that they need to go back to the core and to accept borders as they are, to accept each other as they are, and to forget this role of playing a dominant power, as it were, and dictating terms to smaller countries. They have to, respect the small countries more than they do for the bigger countries, to make them comfortable. Look at the EU, for example. When the EU was created in the very beginning, in the 50s, with the European communities, it didn't put the headquarters in Berlin or Paris. It put it in Brussels, one of the smallest countries. But here we have larger countries there in the Gulf and also in the Arab world, where Cairo, has the Arab League, Riyadh has the Gulf Cooperation Council. This mentality has to change to respect the smaller countries, to bring them in, to make them feel comfortable, and to ensure their security and stability, because that will ensure the security and stability for all. I think we are going through a very steep learning curve because of what is going on. I think also the challenges that we are going to face in terms of the new wars and the new technologies that are now being introduced to wars, and because of the economic challenges, and because of the post-oil economy and so on, and transition away from oil and gas, these countries have to learn that they can only work, their security is only guaranteed if they work together, if they respect each other, and if they include all the parties. This is not new. It's been going on and it's been said for many, many, many years. And then it's been ignored, unfortunately. I believe this conflict now and this war now is going to be a steep learning curve, as I mentioned earlier, and a wake up call to all the Gulf states that enough is enough. Let's now work together between ourselves, respect each other, but also let's work with others and respect their interests and work and collaborate closely with them. I hope this is, not just wishful thinking. I hope that the war now and the devastation that has happened and the vulnerability that the Gulf states have shown to be in will teach them and nudge them to move into that direction.
Thank you, Professor Abdullah. Ahmad, I'll make a few concluding remarks and then you can propose the vote of thanks. Dear participants, Professor Abdullah Baabood, as expected, he has delivered a very important lecture on the current Gulf developments. And as he sees it, this is a seismic or turning point, and this war is a game changer, and that the GCC is moving away from dependency syndrome, and that security can't be outsourced completely, and that outside powers cannot be relied to safeguard the security. You see, the GCC had proposed a peninsula shield in Hafr al-Batin. I visited that place, but there was hardly any cooperation. Each country bought its own weapons, air defense system. There was no coordination. You see, this is the reality. We may debunk the British, but as one British writer, titled his book that the GCC states are tribes with flags. Unfortunately, it is a reality. You see, as Professor Abdullah pointed out, if the headquarters had been in Doha or Panama, it would have really helped situation there. But this Shamar tribe mentality, or the dominant tribe should rule and others should be subdued. This is a reality. I've been to all the GCC countries, I've witnessed elections, etc., etc. So my second point is, you see, the Iranian recent events have shown that no matter what Mossad and CIA does to provoke internal unrest and to work for regime change, but the nationalist feelings of the Iranians have rallied behind the government. However critical they might be because of the economic situation, police repression, and long dissatisfaction with the Islamic government. But unfortunately, you see, the GCC countries have not focused so much on internal legitimacy or greater legitimacy. Professor Abdullah has been teaching his students on political culture, legitimacy, political system, all of these things, which I have also taught for nearly 38 years. But I feel that once the people are behind the government, whether it is Khalifas or Al-Thanis or Busaidis or Sabas, you see, and the sharing of power is very important. Like in Bahrain, now we have seen very different scenes where people are coming on the streets and cheering, and as if it looks they are welcoming the Iranian missiles, etc. So in the Arab Spring also we noticed demonstrations not only in Oman, where the former Sultan had to sack ministers on corruption and other charges, but also in Kuwait and other places. The Pearl Square in Bahrain was completely razed, and Bahrain had to seek the GCC forces, particularly from Saudi Arabia. So the people need to be involved in the decision-making process, Elections, of course, are held and so on and so forth, but the kind of power sharing arrangement is there is, I think, very important. Like, I'm not very happy about the Iranian political system, but their change of leadership, elections, so on and so forth, puts the people behind the government. The third one is, you see, the EU-like structure, where it can start GCC plus, as Professor Abdullah has pointed out, including Iran, Iraq, Yemen, so on and so forth. I have written a recent article in which I pointed out that SARC is almost dead, the South Asian Association for Cooperation, because of Indo-Pakistan skirmishes. So India has very good relations with the GCC. Pakistan has very good relations with the GCC. And if you can include India, Pakistan, Iran, Iraq, and GCC countries, plus Yemen and others, it would be the economic cooperation. You see, Yemen and Iran need economic cooperation. They have the resources to some extent, Yemen, but Iran has been prevented by sanctions. So in that way, the economic cooperation involving these South Asian and West Asian or Gulf countries, I think that would be a beginning later on. The GCC countries can focus only on the security. See, I still now recommend Oman's policy, step-by-step policy, that is for harmonization of the policies, because after the Madrid conference, Sultan Qaboos had proposed a step-by-step approach. Let us start a water cooperation agreement in Muscat. Let us have Israeli scientists working here, so on and so forth. But unfortunately, this competition, fierce competition encouraged by the external actors for their own economic and defense industries, they suggest something to Qatar, something to Bahrain, something to UAE, something to Saudi Arabia, like what Kissinger did after 73 war, that he would tell Sadat that I have just returned from Riyadh. King Faisal thinks he is the ruler of the Islamic world. Then he would go to Syria and then tell Hafiz al-Assad that Sadat wants to be the leader of the Arab world. He created schisms, divisions, and that is how the external powers have used the fear of Iran and other powers. So step-by-step harmonization, I think, would be good for the future Gulf security. But the fourth factor, which Abdullah hinted at, is a very nightmare scenario. That is the nuclear option. My own fear is that after the killing of Ali Khamenei, the younger Mustafa Khamenei, who has the backing of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, has initiated a very offensive, aggressive policy of not reacting, but offensive. So in that way, if Iran is pushed to the wall, if the carpet bombing continues, and if there is a massive destruction of Iran's infrastructure, you see, Iran may just walk out of the NPT and may say we have become a nuclear power, which Ali Larijani pointed out that in 48 to 72 hours we will have a nuclear military option, which is a real possibility of the enriched uranium which they have. So where will this lead all this to? Because the more extremists who now will be in power, because there is now clear, you can see the fault lines between the president, Iranian president, and the statements made by IRGC commanders. This president apologized for the attacks, and immediately the IRGC commander said, we will continue our attack on the this neighboring countries. So there is a political divide now. And I don't think the IRGC would allow the president of the so-called liberals. President was an opposition leader. He would like to pander to the liberals and other critics of these things. So in that way, you see the US credibility very low, and the end of virtually the US domination in this crisis. What I would see is what started in Gaza, as Professor Abdullah pointed out, will end with pressure on Israel for a two-state solution, because one-state solution, I think they will never agree to that. So in that way, see the track through diplomacy, which he pointed out, that Israel is not willing to delineate its position on the two-state solution. But on the other side, we have Iran, which completely challenges the legitimacy of Israel. So we have the GCC is caught between the two giants who have completely opposite security interest and attempts to dominate this region. So Gaza and the present conflict, as Dr. Abdullah pointed out, will decide the future of the new world order, which is moving towards the multipolar world, increasing Russian and Chinese involvement. And this only means the United States will be cut down to size, and eventually, because of its own suicidal policy, it may lead to its own disintegration. Hopefully, the Gulf people will have more voice. Gulf leaders will come to a better understanding, and the good neighborly policies which existed for centuries, because Persia and the Arab Gulf have lived for centuries. I have been to all the areas from Bandar Abbas to Bushehr and Khorramshahr, Dezful, Ahwaz. I have seen many Arabs there talking both Persian and Arabic, and boatloads of people every day from all of these Gulf coasts come to Hormuz, Bandar Abbas, Kish Island, and other places. And there has been cooperation both in trade, commerce, and they have shared all the good things they have, the Magan civilization, the Dilmun civilization, and the Mesopotamian civilization, and the Persian civilization. Hope that the outside powers, their reduction in their influence will give enough courage and boldness to the Arabs and the Persians or the Iranians to come together and live in peace and share their culture, heritage, and they belong to the same religion, whether it is Sunni or Shia. I mean, I've been to Iraq where the tribal leader is a Shia, but most of the people of his tribe are Sunni. And I've been to Egypt where Christians have similar names, which is very difficult to identify who is a Muslim and Christian in southern or upper Egypt. So in that way, the harmony between Christians, Jews, and Arabs have been enduring factor. With these few words, I would hand over to Hamad. Thank you, Abdullah, once again.
Thank you.
Hamad,
Professor?
we still have 2 minutes, I think.
Yes, and we have two questions, and they are insisting
No. I think we will.
Okay, sir.
You summarize and vote of thanks, please.
Okay. Thank you so much, Professor Abdullah Baabood, for accepting our invitation from IDDF Research Foundation. I have been following you for quite a long time on Twitter and on other social media platforms, and have been through some of your writings. And it was nice having you on this platform. We wish you to see in Delhi in person soon in future. We are basically based in New Delhi. So if you, like, inshallah, in future, we organize some in-person events. We are going to see you in person.
I'm currently in India, by the way.
In Bengaluru.
Yes.
But
where I am speaking from.
But the distance between Delhi and Bengaluru is like distance between Delhi and Qatar.
Yes, I know.
Or Bombay and Muscat.
Yes.
Yes.
And I would like to thank Professor Aftab Kamal Pasha for chairing this session. And I will take this moment to express my gratitude to all the participants for being very sound listener to this wonderful program. Thank you all, and we wish you to see in the next programs. Thank you. With this, I would announce the end of this session.
Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you.
you. Shukran.
Abdullah, I want to have a word with Abdullah, if he's still online.
Sure.
Yeah, I just want to note down your number in Bangalore here.
Yes, I have my WhatsApp Oman number. Let me send it to you.
Please send me on Twitter. Like, I will send you a message in the chat box on Twitter.
Okay. And you can share it.
Ahmad can coordinate and link us.
Yeah,
okay.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ahmad.